Hello and welcome again to another episode of One Starfish, where our mission is to change the world one person or one starfish at a time, and together make a massive difference. As always, make sure to rate, review, share, all of those things. Tag us on Instagram. I'm excited for our guest today, Julie Forbes. I met her not that long ago, and it's really interesting. She's come from like a musical background to now she says it's UI/UX designer, which I'm like, what is that? Websites, mobile. We'll get into some of this a little bit. So welcome to the show, Julie. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here, Angela.
Very cool. So we're talking a little bit before about how you transitioned from one industry to a completely different industry. Tell us a little bit about like why you transitioned and yeah, where that's kind of going for you.
Sure. Well, in my career, I've come from a career in teaching, which is all to do with being with people. So helping people learn, helping them achieve goals. And so, yeah, as you said, I started my career with a musical background. So I've played piano all my life, basically. And when I went to university, when it was time to choose a career, I thought, well, this is what I do best. Why don't I try that? So I studied classical piano and alongside education because I'm like, well, how do I turn this into a career? I can either perform or I can teach. So I decided to teach. And so I taught private piano lessons for a long time and even in elementary music. But throughout the career, I wondered, well, what else can I do? I've done music all my life. There must be, there's so many different parts of who we can be or different types of versions of ourselves. So I'm like, what's another version of myself? What other avenue could I explore? I've always had a creative side. I've been in, dance lessons, piano, of course. And so I knew it had to be something creative, and I've always been drawn to very visual aspects as well, whether that be designs in furniture, whether it be patterns in textiles, anything. So I'm like, okay, it has to be creative, and I also wanted it to be have more of a, let's say, forward thinking. So in studying piano, it's almost a study in history. You study works from 17th century, 18th century, so things from so long ago. So I wanted to be on the other side, looking towards the future. And so when the pandemic hit, and we had to learn so many tools in
Mm-hmm.
learning how to teach them, I thought, well, who are the people behind these tools? Who are the ones who are creating it? I want to do that because so many times, like, there'd be a new tool I had to use, and I'm like, I wish I had that idea. It's so creative, it's so different, it's so innovative. So I'm like, how can I become one of those people? What are their titles exactly? So I had the same reaction when I heard UX designer. I said, "What is that? What is that exactly?" So my husband, he's actually a graphic designer, and he took a course in UX design. His company sent him to
Okay.
Vancouver, and I didn't think of much of it at a time. I'm like, "Oh, UX, it has a neat name. That's it."
Yeah.
But then, yeah, but then as I really got into thinking of what else can I do? How can I add to my skill set? In my career trajectory, I started snooping on LinkedIn to see what other people who have my background, what they're studying now. Are they still continuing with music, or have they ventured into other industries? And I came across this one girl's profile, and she had a very similar background to me. She was a pianist as well, and had a background in organizing concerts. But now she was studying at, as a designer at OCAD University, and in her profile, it said that she had completed a UX design course. So I thought, why don't I connect with this person and ask, okay, how'd you get there, kind of thing. And yeah, she said it suited her creative side and wanted to explore, yeah, the technology side. So I'm like, okay, maybe this is the path that I want to take because it's dealing with innovating products and creating something new. So yeah, I signed up for that course. It was a 6-month class, and then so that was for UX, user experience. It involves building products to make sure that they're easy to use. So whether it be a website or whether it be a mobile application.
Mm.
So you're looking at, okay, what is the user? So the person that's using the website, what are they trying to accomplish? Are they
Mhm.
on a, let's say, an e-commerce site where they're shopping for a dress, what are the steps that they go through in order to choose the dress and put it into the shopping cart? And how do you make that process as easy as possible? And then after that UX course, I went into the UI course. So that stands for user interface. So that is what the user is looking at. So the shape of the button, the colors of the buttons, where the placement of the buttons, how do they know to click here as opposed to there, and
Mm,
how do you design it so that they know if they click here, it'll take them to where they actually want to go. So it's a lot of there's a bit of psychology in there,
mhm.
as well as design principles. So you have to learn. Oh, sorry, my nose is running. So a lot of design principles. So knowing how to build, let's say, visual hierarchy. So if there's a large text that you want them to read, how do you make it easy to scan? It can't just be one chunk. You can either bold something, make the font smaller
Right,
or
yeah.
larger. Yeah, so all it's a very let's say multifaceted practice in both UX and UI. And so the the role that I have now, it's more heavily based on designing the interface part. So that's why my title now is UI UX designer.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
That's so crazy. Like if you're like me and you're listening, you're like, I glazed over. I was like,
Yeah.
this is crazy. We could just click on the websites and make it go.
Yeah.
And then you're the one that designs it, which is really cool because obviously that's someone's got to do it. And
Exactly. And it's not something that you really think of. You think, oh, it's this there, it just exists, but it didn't exist prior to someone making the decision for, yeah, having the idea and then making that idea a reality. So that's where I am. I'm the behind the scenes person that's helping to create the product.
that's
Yeah.
really cool. And one of the things I got out of that I want listeners to kind of notice is we went from one passion to a different passion. And
Mhm.
maybe you guys that are listening are in something and maybe it's not working. And maybe you're like ready for a change. And what Julie did, which was awesome, was find someone that was like her. And what did she change to? And then she reached out to that person and said, hey, tell me a little bit about it. And I think we don't do that enough. We don't reach out to people that have what we want to say, hey, is this really what I want? And how did you get there? Like, I think that's just like genius right there, Julie, that you were able to reach out to someone that was like you, had the music background, whatever,
Mhm.
and then was like, hey, is this what I think it is? Like, is this a good idea? How did you get there?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's really it really has helped my career transition because it's one thing to have an idea, but it's another to really envision like the steps to get there. And so we have to look to our network. We have to look to other people who have been in a similar place and know that you're not alone in, wanting to pursue something else. But it is hard to do, but I think that has been the biggest help in learning what direction to take is really asking questions and being brave to ask those questions first of all, and then
Yeah,
knowing,
like I
yeah.
said, like that's a big step to reach out to a stranger and say, hey, tell me a little bit more. And the neat thing is we get worried about that, but most people are super helpful.
Oh,
And most
absolutely, yeah.
people want to help. Like, you'll meet a rare person that's like, no way, but
Mhm,
mostly people are helpful. We just don't reach out for help enough. And I think that was, like I said, a key thing. Like if you're not sure where you're going or you're deciding where you're going in life, find someone that's doing what you think you might want to do. Talk to them and see if that is what you want to do, and then learn the shortcuts, kind of like learn the minefield so you don't have to step on all the mines in order to get to the
exactly,
other
yeah.
side, right?
Exactly, and because it can take time to answer all the questions that you have unless you're like actually living through the experience. So it's
Mhm.
much faster to ask someone who's already been through an experience and gain the insight from them.
Yeah, that's so cool. Switching gears a little bit, we talked about this, and something I love, and I know a lot of our listeners are obviously into, is personal development. You said you got a whole stack of books. You're really
Yeah.
into that. So tell us a little bit about
I
like
got them.
your morning routine. What do you like reading habit? Like what are some
Sure.
of your habits, Julie, that help you
Sure
become
thing. So,
successful?
oh yeah. So in the morning, what do I do first thing? So I'm a fairly spiritual person. So the first thing I
Cool.
do is pray right away.
Good.
I pray for things that I'm happy for. I think, or things that I'm thankful for, I should say, and for how I want the day to go. So in a way, it's just envisioning what my day is going to be like. That's the first thing. Next thing is I stretch. I think I need a new mattress because I'm always very stiff
Maybe.
in the morning. Yeah. So I try to stretch, and I guess I should explain the context. So I'm a new mom as well. I have
All
a
right.
1 year
Yes.
old. And so a lot of my morning is waking up before she does and trying to get in as much, let's say, me time before I can face the day and and tend to everyone else's needs. So
Very
yeah, so I
important.
wake up, I pray, I stretch, and then I get myself ready and before baby, I would spend a long time reading in bed as well. So now it's allocated to the evening time. And so the first book that I wanted to share was actually one that I was doing when I was in a piano pedagogy course. So the chapter that we were focusing on, it wanted us to get to know our students, but more so their personalities. And so they recommended this book. It's called Please Understand Me Too
Oh.
by David Keirsey. And it explains the Myers Briggs test and all the different personality types
Mm,
that you can have. So you can take a test and go through it, and it really goes into detail, even explaining how different personality types perceive time, or
mm,
how different personality types approach even personal development. Like my personality type is all about personal development, whereas some others, that's at the back of their mind kind of thing.
mm,
So that one really opened my eyes to understanding people a bit more.
hmm.
Everyone has different priorities, and not just based on their um, life experience, but based on how they're naturally wired, let's say.
That's important. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like, I'm reading right now How to Win Friends and Influence People. I've read it multiple
Okay.
times.
Yeah,
We're
I've
on
read
my
that too.
third time through in like 2 weeks right now. I'm just like
Yeah.
really reading because it is so important to learn how to understand other people. And like they
Yes.
don't all think like we do. Like,
No.
you don't think like I do. I don't think, but it's like we just think everyone thinks like us. So when they don't, you're like, what's
What
wrong
is
with you?
that? Yes, and
Yeah.
it
And
and it
really
can
they're probably thinking the same thing about you. It's like, what's wrong with
yeah.
you? Like,
Exactly. So that really gave me an insight into, we might be reading the same thing or hearing the same thing, but it'll be interpreted in so many different ways based on our personality types. So yeah, that's a really
that's really cool.
influential book for me.
Yes, and congrats, you got a little one too. Um,
Yes.
where do you see, like, what's your vision if you have one? I know we just switched careers and we have a new baby. What's your
Yeah.
vision for the next 5, 10 years? Like, where do you want everything to kind of go, Julie?
Well, I still feel I'm a teacher at heart, so I hope to eventually get back into teaching just for fun.
Yeah.
Um, teaching music for fun on the side. I do want to travel a bit more. That's
Yeah.
my hope in having a career that's more where I can work anywhere kind of thing.
Hmm.
So that's my goal, to get to the beach is my goal. So yeah, I want to see the world a bit more. I was able to explore a bit more in my early 20s, in my university years. So now I kind of want to bring that back. So that's kind of our family goal, let's say, is to explore. Yeah.
Explore more. Yeah. And be able to
Yeah.
do some music. Like, so with music, you said kind of like on this is kind of your passion is still the
Mhm.
music and doing that on the side, I guess you could say a side hustle.
Yeah.
Um, is it just a really hard industry to kind of make a full living on, or did you get burned out and it was too much and you lost some of the passion?
I think mostly I think I wanted music to be for me. Like
Hmm.
thinking of like personal development again. I think it's something that it's a gift I've been giving, and it makes me feel whole. And so how to translate or to be able to market that, I found it kind of took away from the passion a little bit. So I think that's the biggest reason why I kind of wanted to step back from making music my career. I wanted to make it more my self-expression, my
Hmm.
art form, rather than attach it to my career
Paycheck.
or like financial goals. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that
yeah.
totally makes sense. And I think for once again, for a lot of people listening, maybe where you're at too. I mean, maybe what you're doing, it's becoming a job. I know when I used to train horses, it became a job. And
Mhm.
so, I haven't rode in quite a few years because I kind of burnt out almost. Like it became,
Right.
I had to ride instead of I wanted to
Yes,
ride.
I wanted to. Exactly. So I think stepping back from it now, it is like I do miss it a lot, like because every day I would be singing or playing. But yes, as you say, it starts to turn into a job. And so I like it more now because I play when I want, not when I have to instead. So yeah, the love is returning a bit more. Love was always there, just in different degrees. But yeah, now it's just purely for enjoyment, and I think I needed that as a recharge at this point in my life. Yeah,
And then eventually getting back into maybe doing some teaching with it,
yeah,
depending on around your beach time and your
yeah.
travel time.
Around yeah, exactly. Around the beach time, around the exploring time. Yeah,
Right. You could do it. Hey, we're going to be gone for a few weeks. We're going to
yeah.
be, yeah. Cause yeah, you got your little girl now. And that's a lot of I know your world.
Mhm.
So she,
Yes.
keeps you, yeah, busy, I guess you could
On
say,
my
but
toes. Yeah.
yeah. And you wanting to build that amazing life for her, which is really cool that you guys are doing that. Yeah, doing that, I guess. And if you guys are listening to this and not watching it or whatever, Julie has the most amazing smile. So
Oh, you're very
when I
kind.
first when I
Thank
first
you.
met her, that's one of the things I really noticed is she's a very happy, genuinely happy person. Have you always been that way?
I have, and it's funny. I'm thinking back to years and years ago. The one thing about me is I have a very good memory, like childhood memory.
Oh wow.
So even speaking to friends and family, I'm like, oh, do you remember this time? And they'll say no, and I'm like, oh, but I remember what we said and how we felt. So yeah, thinking back to childhood, I remember in junior high, it was a group of us sitting together, and it was, people I had gone to elementary school with. So we had known each other for probably 10 plus years already. And one boy, we weren't close or anything. He's like, "Oh, in elementary school, Julie was always the nicest person." I'm like, "Really? You thought that about me? I didn't know. I thought everyone was nice." So, but that going back to the book on personality traits, that's my personality trait. Is I have I'm very empathetic, and that's just how I see people. I I can look at you and I read your facial expression and I know whether you've had a good day or not, kind of thing.
Hmm.
Or even my musical ear can pick up the tone in your voice and know kind of what you're feeling a little. Not to say I'm reading minds or
Right.
anything, but some people are just more in tuned to other
Yes.
people's emotions, and so I feel I'm that person. So that's what I try to bring when I look at a person. I see you. I see the goodness in you, and that's the first thing I see until you show me otherwise, let's say.
Right. Of course. Right.
Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's like, and some people, when they're empathetic, they almost feel too much. And then if they're around, say, quote, negative energy, it actually
Mhm.
makes them negative, where I don't think it affects you that way. Do you know,
Um,
like,
it can. You'd know if it was affecting me if there's a complete silence.
okay,
That's how you would know, yeah, because instead of being more outward, I go inward in order almost
to protect
let's
yourself?
say, yeah, almost to protect, but also to process what's happening, I guess. Yeah.
Why are you being so negative?
Yeah. Yeah. What's so bad? What could possibly be so bad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some, because you are that way. So I know, I mean, I don't know you that well, but I'm sure you've been through, I mean, you're married, you've been through stuff, you've been through struggles, you've been through hardships. What are
Mm.
some things that have got you tangible tips that, because a lot of people that are listening also are probably going through a lot of different stuff,
Oh,
especially this year
yeah.
with everything going on. There's just a lot going on. What
Mhm.
are some tangible tips that you would say to someone that helped you come out of some, if you can think back to some of those maybe darker times in your life, you don't have to tell the stories
Oh,
necessarily, but like
yeah.
what got you out of them?
Sure. I think it's to know that whatever has happened to you, it's not the first time it has ever happened to anyone. And so to look at your life from more of an objective point of view. Because
Mhm.
sometimes when you're in it and you're in let's say, the darker times of your life, um, it's hard to see past those clouds, let's say, or past those dark moments. So you almost have to separate yourself from it and in order to see the bigger picture in order to get yourself out of those places and turn to people, yeah, turn to people because they always want to hear what you have to say. Even
Mhm.
if you're thinking, oh, I don't want to bother someone else, chances are they always want to hear you. And especially if it's someone that's already in your life, whether it be a friend or a family member, um, they want to hear you. So just be
Mm.
willing to speak out. Yeah.
That's really good. That's yeah, and realize yeah, you're not the only one, and so you're not alone. And I think a lot
Yeah.
of people feel like they're the only ones, and they are alone. And so just realizing you're not, and then finding people maybe that are dealing with the same struggles that you're dealing with, and able to like once again reaching out to other people and asking
Yes.
for advice. Is that something you've kind of done too then?
Oh,
Because it sounds like you
absolutely.
reach out for help pretty quick, which is really
Yeah,
good.
and it's something I had to learn. It's not something that always came easily, and it
Hmm.
is not something that I knew, let's say, I had permission to do. Always thought,
Hmm.
oh, I have to be able to do this by myself because,
Hmm.
it's my problem, it's my issue. I have to be able to solve it.
You're a
But
superwoman, how
yeah,
powerful.
exactly. But you're only one mind, and if you consult someone else, they might have a different perspective and a different answer that they can provide to you. So you have to, we there's another book that
I
I've
like
read.
it.
I forget the author, but I think it's called Belonging, and its perspective it was how we belong here in Canada as one another. But there was one part in it, um, where it says we only exist because of other people, like other
Mm.
people that we're connected to. If we were alone, we could never see ourselves through others' eyes. So it's only
Mhm.
people interacting with us, um, that we know who we are, almost by seeing what we are not in a way.
Mhm.
So know that you're never alone, and there's always someone that can lend a hand. Just be brave enough to reach out.
That's really good. That's a really good point. Um, so in wrapping up, we'll wrap up. We have three final questions we always ask.
Sure.
And then lastly, just anything you want to kind of leave the listeners to, we'll wrap up with that. So three final questions is if someone is looking for their purpose, which a lot of people are looking for their purpose, and it's interesting, like I said, where I'm interested in your answer on this actually, because you kind of had a purpose and then you kind of have a different purpose now. I feel like kind of, but I don't know where you feel on that, but what's one sentence that you would say that would help someone like find their purpose?
One sentence. That's
Or a
limiting.
paragraph? It's all good.
One sentence.
One thought.
One thought. Let's say maybe look to the world around you. What sparks your interests? Yeah, look to the world around you.
See what sparks. I like it. Number
Yeah.
two question, and you'll have lots, but the one that comes to mind right now we'll go with your favorite quote and why.
Oh, I didn't bring my quote book.
I know, as I said, like everyone has
That's-
tons, but like what's the one that jumps out right now?
What's the one that jumps out? Oh no, oh, there's so many. I wish I could remember. Oh, be careful what you think. Your life is shaped by your thoughts.
Oof, that's a good one. Yes. And final question is what is one word or sentence you would want on your gravestone? How do you want to be remembered?
The gravestone. Um, was loved and gave love.
Hmm. I could see that being a very true statement on your gravestone. That's awesome. Any final words that that maybe we didn't touch on that you just think, someone that's an aspiring, whatever they're aspiring to be, maybe they're a successful entrepreneur, maybe they're wanting to be an entrepreneur, maybe they're just running a business or working for someone. I don't know. They're obviously into personal growth and personal development spaces to be listening to podcasts like this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what's one word or like, what's something that we didn't touch on that you think would be helpful?
Sure. Can I recommend another book?
Yes, definitely.
Maybe. Yeah. Okay. So this one was recommended to me by a friend. And she, whenever I was, venting on my frustrations in my career search, she recommended this. So it's called "What Color Is Your Parachute?" And this is
Oh,
the 2021 version I have. I don't know if they have a new version, but it says your guide to a lifetime of meaningful work and career success. So it
hmm.
goes through step by step to really be able to search and tailor your career to your your strengths. So that's one that really helps me kind of fine tune my search as well. And yeah, educate yourself. Look through many, many resources. I was on YouTube a lot looking at, videos of other people in transition. Find as much information as you can in order to guide your process, your search. And you will get there. You will get there through trial and error. And it won't be easy. It won't be easy because you're trying to change yourself. You're trying to stretch yourself in ways that you haven't been stretched
Mm,
before. So
mhm.
it's not going to be easy, but it will be worth it once you get there.
That's so good. That's a great, great word. Um, as always, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, all that stuff. Let's go out there and let's change one starfish or one life today. And like I said before, whenever we can change one life at a time, together, we can actually change the world. Thank you so much for being on this podcast, Julie. Appreciate it.
Thank you.